My fiancé said, "You promised you'd never leave me on my worst day." I replied, "This isn't your worst day, it's your choice." By midnight, the wedding was canceled, her bags were boxed, and her sister was begging me to answer. She thought a promise meant permanent access. I thought it meant integrity. Original post: I'm Hudson, 35. Brianna is 31. We were together a little over 4 years, engaged for 8 months, and 6 weeks from getting married when she tried to use an old promise like it was insurance against betrayal. We lived in Tampa. The condo was mine because I bought it before we met. That never mattered while things were good. Brianna worked in marketing for a luxury apartment group. She was great at atmosphere, candles before I got home, handwritten notes in lunch bags. Tiny rituals that made ordinary life feel intentional. 2 years into the relationship, she had a bad panic episode after a Christmas dinner with her mother. Her father had walked out when she was 10, and every so often something reopened that wound. That night she sat on my kitchen floor crying and saying everybody leaves eventually, everybody promises until life gets inconvenient. I held her until she could breathe normally again. At one point she asked me, "Promise you won't leave me on my worst day?" And I said yes. I meant it. If grief hit her, I'd stay. If fear swallowed her, I'd stay. If life got ugly, I'd stay. I meant I would not become one more person who disappeared when she was hurting. I did not know she would one day drag that promise back out after creating the damage herself. The last few months before the wedding had been off. She guarded her phone more, came home later from property dinners, rolled her eyes when I wanted to go over vendor balances. If I pushed, she said I was making romance feel like a spreadsheet. The night it broke open was a Thursday. I got home early because a vendor call moved. Brianna wasn't there yet. Her iPad was on the kitchen counter because she sometimes used it for mood boards and seating drafts. I was looking for the seating chart file she'd asked me to review when a message banner popped up. "Derek, last night felt dangerous in the best way. I can still taste that kiss." Then another. "Derek, if you weren't engaged, you'd have come upstairs. We both know it." I opened the thread. 3 weeks of messages, drinks after a networking mixer. Complaints about me being predictable. Brianna saying she missed who she was before life got locked in. Another line that said, "Hudson is good, but good can feel heavy when you're not sure you're ready to be done becoming yourself." And then the exchange from 2 nights earlier. She had told me she was at a branding dinner with her regional director. Instead, she was at Derek's hotel bar downtown. She wrote, "I should go home. This already crossed a line." He replied, "You crossed it when you kissed me back in the garage." I didn't throw the iPad, didn't yell. I sat at the kitchen island and waited. When she got home at 817, she saw my face and the iPad and went completely still. I asked one question, "Who's Derek?" She tried the usual sequence. "It's not what it looks like." Then, "Okay, it's bad, but not that bad." Then, "I was going to tell you." Then tears. She said Derek was someone she dated briefly in college. They reconnected at a development event. He made her feel spontaneous again, seen again. She swore they only kissed. Swore she never went upstairs. Swore she had been scared by the wedding and the idea of becoming somebody's wife before she understood what she wanted. When she finally stopped, I said the wedding was off. That was when she reached for the old promise. "Hudson, you promised you'd never leave me on my worst day." I looked at her for a second and felt something inside me harden. Then I said, "This isn't your worst day, it's your choice." She cried harder after that, said I was being cruel, said people make mistakes when they panic. Said the kiss only happened because part of her was terrified of marriage, and another part needed reassurance that she was still desirable. Said my promise was supposed to mean something. I told her it did mean something. It meant I would stay when life hurt her. It did not mean I would stay when she betrayed me and then call consequence abandonment. By 9:00 p.m., I had canceled the venue, florist, photographer, and rehearsal dinner deposit. I lost $64.80 that night. Real money. Ugly money. but waiting until Monday would have cost me almost $11,000. While I was canceling vendors, Brianna called 21 times. Then her best friend Lacey texted from an unknown number saying I needed to calm down because Brianna was spiraling. Then her brother Mason sent me a LinkedIn message asking me not to make permanent decisions based on shock. I ignored all of them. Around 1030, Brianna came back into the kitchen wearing the ring and carrying a weekender bag. She asked whether I expected her to just leave. I said yes. She asked where she was supposed to go. I said probably not Derek's hotel if she wanted sympathy from me. That made her slap the ring onto the counter hard enough for it to spin. She packed badly, angry. At one point she stood in the doorway and said, "I really believed you were different." I said I was. I believed promises were mutual. She left around midnight. After the door shut, I stood in the bedroom looking at the empty section of closet and felt the whole thing hit. Not rage, just grief. The kind that notices one toothbrush missing and somehow that hurts more than the affair text. My friend Marcus came over because I finally answered one of his calls. He brought Cuban sandwiches and didn't say anything stupid. At some point, I told him I hated that part of me that still wanted to go after her and force the story back onto its rails. Marcus nodded and said, "A promise to protect someone isn't a contract to let them destroy you." Update 1. It's been 5 days. Brianna has not spent them reflecting quietly. She spent the first day sending paragraphs, some apologetic, some furious. She said the kiss meant nothing, then said it meant something but only because she felt lost, then said Derek manipulated her, then said maybe none of it would have happened if I hadn't made marriage feel so serious all the time. I blocked her after the 10th message. Then came the flying monkeys. Lacey texted from 2 different numbers. Mason emailed me. Her coworker Jenna found my Instagram and sent a speech about how Brianna had unresolved abandonment trauma, and I was confirming her deepest fear by leaving during a vulnerable moment. Brianna moved in with Lacey temporarily. I know because she made sure I knew. Sad little stories on social media. Rainy windshield, wine glass, captions about broken promises. Then she started showing up places. Coffee shop near my office, grocery store, gym parking lot. Every time same routine, small startled face, soft voice, "Hey, can we just talk for 2 minutes?" By the third one, coincidence was dead. Tuesday night I came home and found her sitting outside my condo door wearing my old college sweatshirt. Not crying, just waiting to be seen. I stayed by the elevator and asked what she wanted. She said she wanted to come home. I told her home doesn't work after betrayal plus a speech about technical abandonment. That made her angry fast. She said I was hiding behind logic because emotion scared me. Said I was acting like a judge instead of the man who once held her on a kitchen floor and promised not to leave. Then she asked the question she clearly thought would reopen something. "Did you mean it when you promised me or not?" I said yes, I meant it. "And you are the one who turned it into a weapon." She cried after that, said she had been drowning in wedding pressure, said Derek was a stupid mistake. Said she kept waiting for me to remember the good years instead of reducing her to one terrible night. I told her I remembered the good years just fine. I just wasn't willing to let them erase the present. She left eventually, but not before saying I was going to regret being this rigid. The next morning I changed the lock code, removed her garage remote, and told building management we had broken up. Dana, the property manager, asked one question. "Is she on any paperwork?" I said no. Dana nodded and said then she doesn't get access. Work got busy in a useful way. I'm a finance manager for a marine equipment company, and our controller left for another firm, so my director asked me to cover interim reporting. Marcus also dragged me back into Thursday night rec league basketball. That's where I met Claire, a friend of one of Marcus's coworkers who joined because they were short a player. Nothing dramatic, just easy conversation after. Brianna found out I'd been out with people. The next morning she left a small envelope under my doormat. Inside was a copy of an old note I had written after that kitchen floor panic episode. In my handwriting, I'm not going anywhere. Bad days don't scare me. Under it, she had written, I guess that expired. That was when I started a folder on my desktop labeled Evidence. Update: two things escalated fast after the note. First, Brianna showed up at my office. Reception called and said a woman downstairs was asking for Hudson because it was personal and urgent. I already knew. I went down anyway because the last thing I needed was a lobby scene in front of clients. She was standing there in a cream blouse, holding a white bakery box and one of our old engagement photos in a frame. I told her she needed to leave. She said she only wanted 5 minutes. I said no. She held up the photo and said, "Look at us. Are you really throwing this away over one broken promise on my side when you broke one too?" I said I didn't break mine. I corrected my understanding of it. She started crying in the lobby, said I was humiliating her, said she had baked my favorite brown butter cookies. Said if I could just remember who we were before fear got involved, maybe we could stop doing this to each other. I asked reception to call security. That made her hiss, "You're making me look crazy." I said, "You came to my workplace with props." Security walked her out. I photographed the bakery box and framed photo before throwing both away. That afternoon her mother called me. I had always liked Denise. She was quiet, practical, and usually the first person in Brianna's family to say the uncomfortable truth. She asked what was going on, so I told her. Derek, the promise. The note, the office visit, the run-ins. There was a long silence. Then Denise said, "I knew about the kiss. She told me it was a misunderstanding and that you were overreacting." She did not mention the hotel or the promise part. I forwarded her the screenshots. 10 minutes later she texted back, "I'm sorry. I thought that might calm Brianna down. Instead it got stranger." 2 nights later I got a voicemail from an unfamiliar number claiming to be from an urgent counseling clinic. The woman said Brianna had listed me as her emergency contact and was in distress and asking for me specifically. It felt wrong immediately, so I called the number from a work line. It went straight to a generic Google Voice greeting. 5 minutes later, Brianna texted from another unknown number, "I guess even now you won't show up." That was the moment my chest stopped hurting and got cold instead. I saved everything and called an attorney the next morning. Consultation was $875. Cease and desist was another $350. I paid both before lunch. For a week, things were quiet. Then Claire and I went to dinner. It was not even really a date at first, more like an after-game meal that both of us understood might become one if the conversation stayed easy. It did. We went to a seafood place in Hyde Park, sat outside, and for the first time in weeks I got through an entire hour without checking whether grief was still in the room with me. Then Brianna walked up wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for engagement photos. She stopped right by the table and said, "So this is how quickly promises get recycled." I stood up and told her to leave. She ignored me and looked at Claire. Then she said, "Careful, he says forever until you have one ugly night." Claire, to her credit, said nothing. I told Brianna again to leave. Instead, she set a folded piece of paper on the table. It was a printout of that old promise note again, underlined this time. Then she reached for my wrist like she thought touch would outrank reality. I stepped back. The manager came over. Brianna started crying. Loud. Said I was punishing her for being human. Said she had made one mistake and I was treating her like a criminal because I wanted to look righteous in front of another woman. Then she knocked Claire's water glass over with her purse while pointing at me. Water everywhere. Menu soaked. Claire's lap. Staff moved fast after that. Security escorted Brianna out. Police were called because I already had the cease and desist letter and the prior report number on my phone. She got a criminal trespass warning from the restaurant. Later that night, my balcony camera picked up motion. Brianna was parked across the street. The camera caught her car and then a text came through seconds later from another number. "You can replace me. You can't replace what you promised." Then another. "I can see your living room light." That was enough. The next morning, my attorney filed for a protective order. Final update: the hearing was about 6 weeks after I found the messages on the iPad. By then, I had a binder thick enough to make the whole thing boring, which is exactly what you want in court. Screenshots from Derek, call logs, unknown number texts, the doormat note, the office incident report, Denise's texts, the fake clinic voicemail, the restaurant statement, balcony footage, the text about my living room light. Brianna showed up dressed like she was interviewing to be believed. Soft cardigan, low bun, no dramatic makeup, no ring. Her attorney tried to frame everything as a painful breakup made worse by trauma and a promise that had been deeply meaningful to his client. My attorney kept it simple. He said promises made in support do not nullify boundaries after deception, and post-breakup contact becomes harassment when it continues after repeated requests to stop. Then the judge started reading. First the message from Derek. Then Brianna's text about me being good, but heavy. Then the note under the doormat. Then finally the text that said, "You can replace me. You can't replace what you promised." The judge looked at Brianna and asked if she disputed sending that. She didn't. Protective order granted. 1 year. No contact. No showing up at my condo, office, gym, or documented recurring activities, including the rec league venue and the restaurant. When we stepped into the hallway afterward, Denise was there. She asked if she could say one thing. I said yes. She said a promise is supposed to make people feel safe, not trapped. Then she walked away with Brianna. It's been almost 3 months now. The interim controller role became permanent. The raise covered most of what I lost on the wedding and legal fees. I donated unopened wedding decor, returned what I could, sold the custom table numbers online to another couple in St. Pete, and turned the spare room into an office instead of a storage unit for bad plans. Claire and I are seeing each other. Slowly. Normally. No grand declarations. No tests. The first time I told her the whole story, she listened and said she wanted a promise to function like immunity. That's not love. That's leverage. She was right. But here's what I understand now. A promise is not a surrender. A promise is not permission for someone to betray you and then invoice you emotionally when you respond. A promise made in tenderness does not require you to abandon your own judgment later. I did keep my word, just not in the way Brianna wanted. When she was hurting and honest, I stayed. When she was scared and open, I stayed. When life was messy and unfair, I stayed. What I refused to do was stay after deceit, manipulation, and a fake definition of loyalty. You are allowed to mean what you said when you said it and still reject the way someone else tries to use it later. You are allowed to say, "I promise to love you, not to lose myself." That's the part Brianna never understood. She thought the promise meant I would remain reachable, persuadable, and guilty forever. Instead, it clarified everything. Because once someone uses your kindness as a legal defense against their own choices, the relationship is already over. All that's left is paperwork and distance. If you've ever had someone use a promise against you after they broke your trust, comment below and tell me what happened or what you think. Subscribe, like, and share if you want more stories like this.